Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters. We are live and in person again tonight. Um, and we are live.
We are live.
So this is a podcast. I always forget, like, what am I supposed to say next? But this is a podcast where we talk about marriage matters because
Marriage matters.
that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So if you're watching for the very first time, my name is Glenn Coleman, and I'm joined, as always, by my beautiful wife.
Hello, everyone. I am Tynia Coleman. So glad to be with you this evening.
Yes, indeed. So I always like to check in with you on the podcast as well as in real life. But right now I'm on the podcast. So how are you doing?
I am doing great. I'm doing well. It has been a wonderful day, beautiful weekend. So, yeah,
So far so
we're here
good.
on this big Sunday evening.
Sunday evening, yeah.
Yes.
So we're gonna just jump into tonight's topic because I know you have another meeting that's scheduled
Yeah, right
for
after this.
7 o'clock.
Yep.
So we're gonna go ahead and jump into it. So you came up with the topic. So what are we
So
talking
that
about
means I
tonight?
have a talk.
Yeah. What are we
Okay.
talking about tonight?
So tonight we are talking about unity. And every time I say the word unity, I think about the song. How does it go?
UNITY. Queen Latifah. Shout out to the
Yes,
Queen.
yes. So we're talking about unity.
Mhm.
And how sometimes in marriage, learning to walk in unity can be difficult. It can be a challenge. Sometimes it can be painful because of all of the adjustments that we have to make to get to that place of walking in unity.
Mhm.
So that's what we're talking about tonight.
Okay, well, lead the way.
Yeah. So, of course, I like definitions. If you've been hanging around with us for any amount of time, you know that I love definitions. So, I'm going to read you guys a couple of definitions um, of unity. So, the first one says that unity is the quality or state of not being multiple, it's oneness.
The quality
Hmm.
or
Or
state
state.
of
Hmm.
not being multiple.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But oneness.
But oneness. I like
Yes.
it.
Yes. The second one is a condition of harmony
Okay.
and the quality or state of being made one. That's my favorite one. The quality or state of being made one, which is unification, of being made one. And I love that one because we often talk about how, that oneness, that when we get married, that it doesn't happen automatically in the
Mhm.
natural, right? It happens in the spirit when we say our vows, but it does not happen in the natural. It is a process, an ongoing process. So I love that definition because it's the state of being made one, or
Mhm.
being made into unification.
Yeah, and one thing that comes to mind when talking about this is I often say you can't be married with a single mentality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that, what is it, Romans 12:2 talks about being, don't be conformed to this world, to
Be
be
renewed.
transformed by the renewing of your
Mm-hmm.
mind. So I think it's the same thing, part of that becoming one or becoming or walking into unity,
Mm-hmm.
and it has to do with um, having a renewed mind.
Yes, that's so good. That because that's exactly what we have to do
And
in marriage is to renew our mind from, like you said, that single mindset to now that it's no longer just me. I also have this other individual.
yeah, and I know for me that renewing of the mind or changing, going from a single mindset
Mm-hmm.
to a unity mindset,
Mm-hmm.
it took some time for me to get used to that and
Sure.
saying, well, I can't just do what I want to do, um, and just go wherever I want to go. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, and this is something I'm still learning,
Mm-hmm.
is the check-in.
Mm-hmm.
Not having to check in with you,
Mm-hmm.
especially if I'm going all day and I never pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm
Mm-hmm.
here. Or,
Mm-hmm.
especially like if I leave work and I don't come straight home,
Mm-hmm.
if I don't text or call and say,
Right. I'm going
I'm
A, B, C,
going
or D.
somewhere, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's 2 hours later and you hadn't
Mm-hmm.
heard from me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that could cause a problem.
That could cause, I
That
mean,
could,
it's going to cause concern
yeah,
automatically.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, that was just an example of going from a single mindset to where
Mm-hmm.
I'm my own man, you know, I don't have to answer to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But now going into unity is not, it's not about me, but it's about us coming into unity and
Mm-hmm.
being one. Okay.
Yeah, being unified, being
Yeah.
together. So I was reading an article in Exo Marriage, and they referenced that when talking about unity, the three-legged race, right? So most of us have participated in these three-legged races where you have one sack, right, the sackcloth, and you and your partner each put a leg in, right? And so one
Hmm.
of you is the right, one of you is the left, and oftentimes, you guys know, anytime that you have participated in or watched those races, there's the pair or two pairs that they take off like Speedy Gonzalez, and they are moving, and then before they get too far out, they fall,
Hmm.
right? And then there's the pair that they probably didn't take off from the jump, but they had a little bit more communication with one another, and then they got started. And usually, that's usually the pair that gets to the finish line.
Hmm.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
I'm quizzing you.
I don't. I guess because if if you just take off, there's so many things that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I may be a faster runner than you,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm trying to move ahead, and I'm pulling you behind me, and because you can't keep up with me, and I'm not waiting
Mm-hmm.
for you, it could cause us to fall.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that we're not in lockstep. If
Yep.
I'm trying to put my left foot forward and you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to put
Mm-hmm.
your right foot forward, well, no, that's the way we want to go. So if I'm trying to put my left foot forward and you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
put your right foot forward,
Mm-hmm.
that could cause us to stumble.
Exactly.
So we're
Exactly.
not in sync.
Exactly, and that, I mean, that exactly my point. It's like, if it's the pacing. So
Hmm.
if you're trying to go faster than me,
Hmm.
then that could cause for us to fall if we are not in sync, if we're not synchronizing, if we didn't say, okay, I'm going to start, you follow behind me, I do this, you do that, and so now we have a plan, and we have some synergy happening, and so we have a rhythm, right? We have
Hmm.
pacing, we have synchronization,
Hmm.
pacing and synchronization, and realize that everything that we do in that moment, in that race, everything that I do and everything that you do affects the other person.
Hmm.
And I don't know, in marriage, if people always consider that now that we are married, everything that I do affects you,
Hmm.
and everything that you do affects me,
Yeah.
right? And is it just the things that we did, that we do now that we're married? No, some of the things that we did prior to getting married also affect one another once we become married. And so
Absolutely.
that's why it's important that we have communication, we have conversations that help us to operate in sync, in stride together, in pacing, and in unity together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thinking about knowing that unity does not happen automatically, like I talked about earlier. It's like we say I do at the altar, right?
Hmm.
And I believe with all of my being that in the spirit we are one in that moment.
Hmm.
However, learning to operate in the spirit, to operate in unity, it takes time,
Yeah.
to do that. There's a lot of learning that has to happen,
Sure.
over a process of time. So know that unity does not happen automatically, nor does it happen immediately.
Hmm.
When we make unity a priority, we strengthen the threefold cord. So like the Bible talks about, in Ecclesiastes 4 and 12, it talks about, and though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves, but a cord of three strands is not easily broken,
Hmm.
right? So when we're operating in unity, we are operating in that threefold cord, right? That binding together. And I looked it up. A 2-inch three um, stranded cord made from nylon rope. You know
Okay.
how much strength it is?
I'm pretty sure you're gonna tell me.
It is 118,000 pounds.
So it can hold 118.
118,000
I would not have
pounds.
guessed that.
Yes. That's, I mean, and
Where'd you went to Lowe's website and looked that up?
no,
Oh, okay.
but Google universe is
Okay. I was like, man,
Google
that's a
dot
lot.
universe
Okay.
is out there. So
Okay.
yeah, university, not universe. Yeah, so 118,000 pounds is
Wow.
the strength of a 2-inch nylon three-stranded cord.
I would not have guessed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes we have to move more slowly when we're operating in unity,
Yeah.
right? And we have to slow our pacing down because one of us, hello, i.e., me, is probably ready to jump into something and the other person may not be there yet.
Hmm.
And then that's when we have to pull back and do what we call come into agreement,
Yeah.
right? In order for us to operate in unity.
And the other aspect of that for me is I have to work extra hard at because I'm a very internal. I'm probably one of the most internal of internal processors. If that
Mm-hmm.
so, I sometimes I figure things out in my head and on my own,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to work extra hard in making sure that I know what I'm going to do, or I know what we should do, or I know how we're going to get through this situation.
Mm-hmm.
I have to make sure that I'm communicating that with you
Absolutely.
because I think that's one of the areas for me. I know that I think that's what may cause us to get out of step.
Mm-hmm.
And I always use this example of this movie, Waterworld, where they're attacking this. I'm not going to be long with this example, but they're attacking the boat. So the guy runs below deck, and
Mm-hmm.
the woman and the girl, he leaves the woman and the girl that he's helping on the deck of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, "You coward! Why are you running away?" So she takes out the harpoon
Mm-hmm.
and shoots the plane. And right when he's coming back up, he's like, "No, don't do that!" Shoots the harpoon into the plane. Of course, the harpoon is the rope is now pulling the
It's
boat,
locked in.
destroys the boat, and he's like,
Mm-hmm.
"What are you doing? I was going to," but he didn't say anything. He just ran away. She thought he was running away.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of times that happens in relationships.
Absolutely.
As you may think, well, he's not doing nothing,
Right.
or he's just sitting there, or he's not reacting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am, but it's just all internal. So I have to make sure that I'm communicating all of that I'm
Right,
communicating
right.
with
And
you.
I'll say that in those moments when you are internally processing, although I know that that's how you process, it's just not helpful for me. And so I feel sometimes this disconnect or this distance because I'm like, okay, I'm in this and I'm ready to like talk it out, come to some conclusions, some decisions, and you're processing internally. And so therefore in those moments sometimes it can feel like we're not in sync, like we're not moving in pace together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it is important that, and that's where when I said earlier that sometimes it can be difficult growing into unity. It can be difficult or painful because we all have our different personalities, our different ways of being, and the way that we show up in the world. And it's an adjustment period, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it may not um, feel right to me or feel helpful to me in those moments that you are going to your automatic place of processing things,
Mm-hmm.
right?
For sure.
And so it's an adjustment for me to learn to be patient and to wait, right? And then it's also an adjustment for you to learn to also open up more in those moments and talk through those things, or at least say, hey, I'm thinking about this right now. Give me a little bit more time and I'm going to get back with you, rather than not say anything. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that I see a lot of couples where that happens. It's like, well, he doesn't care. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't, I'll share it. And he does. Well, it may not be that. It may be that he's processing, but
Mm-hmm.
it's unfair not to let your partner know that that's what's happening.
Yeah. And also to keep in mind that some things may not come as easy for you as they come for your spouse. So you have
Absolutely.
to, and I'll just use the example, I like when I'm at work
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, just because I am an expert in a field,
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes you think that just because it comes easy to you, that it comes easy to everybody else.
Right.
And so sometimes even in my job, I have to remind myself that, hey,
Mm-hmm.
everybody doesn't spend as much time in this system as you do.
Right.
So everybody doesn't know the functionality of it as much as you do.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be you have to be able to, if you can't instruct, then you get what I'm saying?
Right. And I
If you
think that
can't
that's
explain the process to
right.
others. So I think that happens in relationships too, where
Absolutely.
this thing comes natural to me. So it's like why is it such a struggle?
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
communication is one of those things where for some, and we've seen this with some of the couples we work with, where one person in the relationship will be like, well, I can just tell you what I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and the other person is like, well, they have to go all over, they have to talk in
Right.
circles for a
Right.
moment to get
Mm-hmm.
their thoughts.
Together.
And so for the one person it's frustrating
Mm-hmm.
because I could just tell you what I think.
Right.
But for the other person, it's like it takes them a while to get their thoughts together. So for this person it's frustrating,
Mm-hmm.
and they're thinking that the other person's just they don't want to talk about the issue.
Mm-hmm.
But for the other person it's like, well, they're just so short and
Matter of fact.
mean to me,
Mm-hmm.
where it's not that, it's just that you guys both have different ways of processing,
Correct.
so you have to make allowances for each other in those situations.
Absolutely. And not feel that just because in that moment it seems like, that we're not in sync, we're not moving, just because in the moment we're not in sync, or we're out of pace with one another, it doesn't mean that we can't get back on track. That's
Yeah.
what this is all about, is that it may be difficult, it may be even painful at moments, but we have to keep having conversations, we have to keep applying the principles that we know, so that we can get on track, get back on track with one another, get in sync with one another, so that we can continue our race,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Um, Sometimes we have to move more slowly. I said that if we move too quickly, we may drag our partner. We have to make a plan and find a rhythm. Like find the right rhythm, find the right tempo. And once you find that rhythm, you get in sync with one another, then you can begin to progress and have momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where making a plan is so important, that as couples, that we like literally plan our lives, not just like the day to day, but okay, where do we want to be economically in the next 5 years? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is where we want to be. So now let's sit and look at, what do we need to do to get there,
Mm-hmm.
right?
For sure.
What are we in both of our areas of work, or bringing in income? What are the adjustments that I need to make? What are the things that I need to do to get us where we need to be?
Mm-hmm.
What are the investments that we may want to make? Just having conversations so that we can build momentum.
For sure.
um, Unity brings blessing. Psalms 133, the Lord commands a blessing when there, it says that the Lord commands a blessing when there is unity. When we operate in unity, we represent the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, three in one, moving together.
Mm.
So when we are operating in unity, we are being a great example, right, of what the unity of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that that is one of the beautiful benefits of marriage, is that we get to experience that level of unity that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit has when we operate in unity, and then we have the benefit of the blessing that
Mm-hmm.
comes on our lives when
Yeah.
we do that.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
No, you own it. I'm learning. I'm taking notes.
So learning to run our race well, right? To learn to pace ourselves together,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which means that one of us may have to slow down, and the other person actually may need to speed up sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have to get into sync with one another,
Yeah.
right? Learn to understand one another's personalities, and likes, dislikes, preferences, the way that we think and that we process, so that everything that our partner doesn't feel like they're doing something to harm me,
Mm-hmm.
or to tick me off, or what have you. There's no, that is not an ill intent. This is just a personality thing,
Yeah.
right? And so how can I meet you where you are, or how can I give you space right? To give you room to process through that so that you can grow to whatever the next place is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or support you in that process. That's what synchronization looks like to me.
Mm-hmm. And you said something that I want to kind of go back to. You said run your race.
Mm-hmm.
And when you said that, it reminded me that it's your race.
Right.
Your relationship
Mm-hmm.
is your relationship. Your relationship has its own fingerprint.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times where we get into trouble is we're looking at other people, what other people are doing and where other people are in life,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to compare ourselves to that. And we've said this before in here. I mean, of course, we have marriage mentors. We have people that we look to
Sure.
in marriage, and who we go to for advice, for counseling, or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But their marriage, I can't look at them and say, or tell Tanya, you need to be more like this person.
Right.
Because and if you would be more like this person, then we would be better off.
Mm-hmm.
Because if even if that person that you're wanting your spouse to be like combined with you won't be the same result. You got what I'm
Amen.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody's different. So that person is the way they are because they're partnering with the person they're partnered with.
Right.
So they're getting those results because they are working their strategy, their plan.
Right.
And I'll just leave it at that. I'm not gonna go into all the other stuff, but we said it all on here before. So
Yeah,
so
for
run
sure.
your race.
Run your race, and if
There's
you
a plan and a strategy for you and your spouse.
absolutely, and if you get to a place to where you're struggling to run that race, right? Then that's where you get a marriage coach, you get a counselor. It doesn't mean that your marriage is in trouble. It's that we are at this place and we can't see just between the two of us how to get past this place. So we need someone with some outside of this space because we're too close to be able to look at it from a higher perspective and help us to find the bridge to get us over this place, right?
Yeah.
So be open to getting marriage coaching, to getting marriage counseling to help you continue to move forward in your race, right? It's an investment,
Yeah.
is what it is. It's an investment of your time and your resources.
And that's a great way to look. I like to look at a coach
Mm-hmm.
or a counselor, whatever, whoever you're seeing is,
Mm-hmm.
they help you to see blind spots
Absolutely.
because it's hard for you. It's like I liken it unto like a fighter pilot. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times with the fighter pilots, they have a rear. They have someone in the
Mm-hmm.
back seat,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking for stuff that the pilot, because
Right.
the pilot is so focused at flying the plane and doing all the
That
stuff that
job.
needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we can overlook some things, or we can't see all of the angles.
Right.
And so that's what having a counselor or a coach will help you do,
Mm-hmm.
is help you reveal some of the blind spots, and maybe even see stuff that you hadn't seen before.
Yep,
So,
absolutely. So we were not going to be before you guys long tonight. We wanted to come in and offer you some tips, tricks, and tools about unity, keeping your marriage unified or getting your marriage to a unified place. And so just remember that operating in unity takes pacing, it takes synchronization, and realizing that everything that I do affects my spouse.
mhm.
Right? Have conversations with one another, be patient with one another, and just work on being in sync.
Mhm. I like it,
Yeah.
Picasso.
I don't even know if that's a real word.
Yeah, it's a TikTok. It's a
Oh,
TikTok
okay.
trend.
Okay.
So anyway, so that's all we have for you tonight. You had anything else?
No, that was it.
So we just wanted to give a shout out to everybody that's watching. As always, my beautiful mother, she's on here watching.
Hey, mama.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully there's something was said tonight that you can take and utilize in your relationship. So if that's it, this is Glenn and Tynia Coleman reminding you that
Your
your marriage
marriage
matters.
matters.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.